Without revolutionary theory, there can be no revolutionary movement.
These powerful words, penned by Vladimir Lenin in 1902, remain as striking today as they were over a century ago. At the turn of the 20th century, the Russian Empire was on the brink of collapse. Tsarist rule had plunged the country into economic disparity, with workers struggling under unbearable conditions and political oppression. Amid this turmoil, revolutionary ideas began to take shape, and the question that burned in the minds of many was simple, yet profound. What is to be done? Lenin's What is to be done was more than a pamphlet. It was a roadmap for revolution. In it, Lenin argued that spontaneous protests and strikes were not enough to achieve real change. What was needed, he insisted, was a tightly organized vanguard of professional revolutionaries, dedicated to guiding the working class toward a socialist future. This text would ignite fierce debates, split the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party into factions, and lay the foundation for the Bolshevik movement that would eventually lead the Russian Revolution. But its influence extends far beyond its historical context, offering lessons in strategy and organization that resonate with activists even today. In this video, we'll dive into Lenin's What is to be done, to uncover its key ideas, explore its historical impact, and reflect on its relevance in the modern world. To understand what is to be done, we need to step back into the world that shaped it, a world teetering on the edge of revolution. At the dawn of the 20th century, the Russian Empire was vast but fragile. Under the rule of Tsar Nicholas II, it was a land of deep inequality. Wealth and power were concentrated in the hands of the aristocracy, while millions of peasants and workers toiled in poverty. Industrialization was spreading, but with it came grueling working conditions, low wages, and little political freedom. The working class was growing, and so was its discontent. Strikes and protests erupted across the empire, fueled by frustration over poor living conditions and a lack of political rights. But these movements were often disorganized and local. They lacked the direction needed to challenge the autocracy. At the same time, revolutionary ideas were gaining ground. Marxism, the theory of class struggle, and the overthrow of capitalism began to resonate with the intellectuals and workers who saw no future under Tsarist rule. In 1898, the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party was formed, aiming to unite these forces. But unity didn't come easily. Within the movement, a fierce debate was brewing. On one side were the economists, who believed the working class should focus on immediate economic struggles, like better wages and working conditions. On the other side stood Lenin, who argued that this approach was too narrow. He believed that without a revolutionary theory and leadership, the working class would never achieve true liberation. It was in this context that Lenin wrote What is to be Done in 1901 and published it in 1902. The pamphlet was his answer to the critical question, how could a movement for socialism succeed in a land as vast and oppressed as Russia? Lenin's answer was bold and controversial. He called for a tightly organized revolutionary party, a vanguard that could lead the working class and build the consciousness needed to overthrow the Tsarist regime. To him, this was not just a theory, it was a blueprint for action. But these ideas didn't just remain on paper. They sparked a division within the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, splitting it into two factions: the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, and the Mensheviks, who opposed his vision of a centralized party. The debates over what is to be done were more than theoretical. They shaped the future of Russia and the course of revolutionary movements worldwide. Lenin lays out a bold vision for how to turn discontent into revolution and how to transform the working class into a force capable of overthrowing the existing order. Lenin begins by critiquing what he saw as the dominant trend in Russian Marxism at the time: economism. This approach argued that workers' struggles over wages, hours, and conditions would naturally evolve into a revolutionary movement. Lenin disagreed. He argued that while economic struggles are important, they only lead to what he called trade union consciousness, the idea that workers will focus on improving their immediate conditions without challenging the system as a whole. For Lenin, true class consciousness had to go beyond this. To achieve revolution, workers needed to understand the broader political and social systems that kept them oppressed. And that understanding, Lenin said, would not develop spontaneously. It had to be brought to the working class from outside by a revolutionary party. This is where Lenin's idea of the vanguard party comes in. He envisioned a group of professional revolutionaries, dedicated, disciplined, and trained in Marxist theory, who would guide the working class. The vanguard wouldn't just fight for workers' economic demands. It would lead them in a political struggle against the entire system, from the factory floor to the Tsar's palace. To do this, Lenin believed the party had to be centralized, operating with strict discipline and unity of purpose. He compared it to a military organization, capable of swift and decisive action under harsh conditions. Lenin also highlighted three interconnected forms of struggle: political, economic, and theoretical. Lenin emphasized that without revolutionary theory, there could be no revolutionary movement. He believed that educating the working class about Marxism was just as important as organizing strikes and protests. Central to Lenin's vision was the idea of unity. He criticized factions within the socialist movement that, in his view, weakened the fight against the Tsarist regime. He argued for a disciplined party, capable of working together with precision and focus. For Lenin, the party wasn't just a vehicle for protest. It was a collective organizer, a force that could shape and direct revolutionary activity across the country, building momentum for the ultimate goal, socialism. Finally, Lenin stressed that revolutionary ideas had to connect with the realities of workers' lives. He believed that the party should expose injustices at every level of society, not just in factories, but in rural areas, schools, and government offices. This broad approach would help the working class see itself as part of a larger struggle, not just against individual factory owners, but against the entire oppressive system. In 1917, the Bolsheviks demonstrated the power of Lenin's ideas. While other parties floundered in disorganization and indecision, the Bolsheviks, guided by the principles of what is to be done, were ready to act decisively. They seized power and established the first socialist state, proving that disciplined organization could transform society. Lenin's blueprint for a vanguard party inspired revolutionaries around the world, recognizing that disciplined leadership was essential to overcoming the forces of imperialism and capitalism. These movements faced overwhelming odds: economic exploitation, military invasions, and political sabotage. Yet, by applying Leninist principles, they built the revolutionary organizations necessary to confront and defeat powerful enemies. Of course, Lenin's ideas have faced criticism. Some claim that his vision of a centralized party leads to authoritarianism. Others argue that democratic centralism, Lenin's framework for decision-making, stifles internal debate and democracy. But these criticisms miss the mark entirely. Let's be clear. Democratic centralism is not about silencing dissent. It's about balancing debate with unity. Lenin understood that open discussions were essential for developing strong strategies. But once a decision is made, unity in action is critical. Imagine a revolutionary movement where members act without coordination or a shared strategy. Efforts would be scattered, and the movement would struggle to achieve its goals. A revolutionary party that can't act decisively is doomed to fail. Democratic centralism ensures that the party remains focused and effective, even in the face of repression and adversity. Lenin wasn't writing in a vacuum. He was dealing with the harsh realities of Tsarist Russia, where revolutionaries were hunted down, imprisoned, and executed. A centralized, disciplined party wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity for survival. Lenin's critics often fail to understand this context. In a system where every decision could mean life or death, disunity wasn't an option. And let's not forget, it was this very structure that allowed the Bolsheviks to succeed where others failed. The real question isn't whether Lenin's ideas are too strict, it's why they work. Revolutions require clarity of purpose and discipline. Without these, movements are easily co-opted or crushed. Lenin didn't propose centralization to suppress democracy, but to empower the working class through effective action. This is the essence of Lenin's thought. A revolutionary party must encourage debate to sharpen its strategy, but it must also act as one to achieve its goals. And history has proven Lenin right. From 1917 to the victories of anti-colonial movements in the 20th century, disciplined parties have consistently outperformed disorganized ones. The world's most powerful empires have fallen, not because revolutionaries were polite or decentralized, but because they were organized. The truth is, Lenin's critics misunderstand the stakes of revolutionary struggle. They view his ideas through the lens of comfort and complacency, not the harsh realities of class warfare. Lenin didn't just write a theory, he gave us a roadmap for victory. And for those serious about change, what is to be done remains an essential guide. Lenin wrote What is to be done under the brutal conditions of Tsarist oppression, a far cry from the realities we face in the United States today. But his insights about building a revolutionary movement remain as relevant as ever, even in a country with a long tradition of constitutionalism and political freedoms. One of Lenin's key lessons is the necessity of organization. In a capitalist system as vast and entrenched as the one in the United States, individual efforts, no matter how passionate, aren't enough to create systemic change. Lenin's call for a disciplined, united movement is a reminder that activism must be strategic and collective. For American communists, this means building strong organizations that can connect local struggles, whether they're about housing, healthcare, or workers' rights, to the broader fight for socialism. Without coordination and long-term planning, our efforts risk being fragmented and ineffective. Lenin's emphasis on political education is another critical lesson. He understood that revolutionary change doesn't happen spontaneously. It requires raising the consciousness of the working class. In America, where decades of anti-communist propaganda have distorted public understanding of socialism, political education is more important than ever. It's not enough to organize protests or support strikes. We must also provide the tools and knowledge that help people see how these struggles connect to capitalism and the need for systemic change. This doesn't mean lecturing or alienating people with jargon. It means meeting them where they are, listening to their concerns, and connecting their experiences to the bigger picture. Unlike Lenin's Russia, America operates under a constitutional framework with political freedoms that allow for open organizing. While Lenin wrote about the need for underground operations, American communists can use legal and public avenues to build movements. But this doesn't mean there aren't lessons to learn from Lenin's approach. The key is to be flexible, adapting Lenin's principles to the unique conditions of the United States. Democratic centralism, for instance, can guide us in balancing internal debate with unified action, ensuring our organizations remain both democratic and effective. Lenin's insistence on discipline and strategy is a powerful reminder for today's activists. In a political climate filled with distractions and divisive tactics, it's easy for movements to lose focus. But real change requires staying disciplined, prioritizing long-term goals over short-term victories, and building structures that can withstand pressure from both the state and capital. For American communists, this means resisting the urge to chase fleeting trends or dilute our principles. Instead, we must focus on building strong foundations, organizing workers, supporting unions, and creating spaces for education and action. Finally, Lenin's approach to unity offers a valuable lesson. He believed in the need for a united movement, but he also recognized that unity didn't mean erasing differences. For American communists, this means embracing the diversity of struggles across race, gender, and class, while building a movement that connects these fights to the larger goal of socialism. Our strength lies in our ability to unite these struggles under a common vision. Lenin's What Is to Be Done teaches us that with the right strategy and organization, we can build a movement powerful enough to challenge even the most entrenched systems. Lenin's lessons aren't relics of the past. They're tools for building a better future. It's up to us, the activists of today, to apply them to our unique conditions and continue the fight for a just and equitable society. The question Lenin posed over a century ago, what is to be done, is one we must continue to ask ourselves. How can we organize more effectively? How can we build consciousness among the working class? And how can we unite our struggles to create a truly just society? The answers lie in our actions. By learning from Lenin's insights and applying them to our conditions, we can continue the fight for socialism and lay the foundations for a future built on equality and liberation. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps spread these ideas to more people. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons from What Is to Be Done inspire you the most? And make sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos exploring Marxist-Leninist theory and revolutionary history.